Hello, this is Bowen Keller, and welcome back to the next week's weekly cryptocurrency review from Pure Investments. I am coming at you guys with another exciting video. Last week I was psyched, this week I'm still psyched, although I'm also much more relaxed. The thing about a huge pump in the market is it gets me really excited, but the thing about the continuation of a general market uptrend is it makes me nice and relaxed and feeling good about the market as a whole. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. I want to jump right in by first looking at our market cap and our global charts here. I'm using year to date so we can see ever since our slow decline. You can see ever since we maxed out right here, we've had our steady decline. And this is what I want to talk about. We have seen our slow and steady decline to our low point of around $249 billion. And we have, recently seen with Bitcoin everything rising, and we're now steadily rising, and we're now up to around $330 billion. This has been a slow and steady increase that has been really good for the market. And it's really good to see it being continued growth rather than here when we drop down to below 300, 286, pumped all the way up to 350 and then back down. This is really good to see. This sort of slow and steady increase, even though we did have a jump up here, you can see instead of it dropping off right here, as it did here, we're having, again, the slow and steady increase, which is really important. In terms of total market capitalization, excluding Bitcoin, same thing. Again, slow and steady increase. If you notice here, it actually is a little bit more drastic, our increase here on our excluding Bitcoin. And I'll talk about that in 1 second. 1 second later, I'm going to talk about it. Here we are looking at total market capitalization, dominance. Again, year to date. So starting again at the big fall of Bitcoin, you can see basically people dropped off from their other holdings and went to Bitcoin as Bitcoin fell. Bitcoin is, the hodler's dream. So here we are in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is now starting to see its rise again. What has happened when Bitcoin sees its rise? Interestingly enough, we are seeing others take over the market. While Bitcoin has been severely dropping in dominance from a high of 45% down to now a low of 41%, we've seen others, like I said here, split off from Ethereum. We've seen others since my last video rise from 20 all the way up to 23.5%, which is huge. We're seeing this growth continue. I do expect to continue as cryptocurrencies diversify away from Bitcoin, which is really cool to see. You have to remember that this isn't stocks, this is cryptocurrency. So every trade, someone's buying and someone's selling. So that can mean that the total market capitalization in terms of dominance can be very low for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin could still be very high in price, if that makes sense. As in, there can be the same amount of Bitcoin, but if it's traded to a high enough price, it can be held there. If people believe in it, it'll stay there, even if the dominance and the dominance will rise, but other dominance can rise as well as other cryptocurrencies rise in valuation, is what I mean to be saying. Now, if we look at it in terms of everything besides Bitcoin and others, boom, and doop, there we go. We can see we have had pretty much stagnation. The only thing that's been growing noticeably have been our lower gainers here and Ripple. But if we take away Ethereum and Ripple, let me take that back for 1 second. So Ethereum, you can see here we've had it dip down a little bit, but pretty much nothing significant. It's pretty much been stagnating. And if we take away Ripple, which has had its growth, which I will talk about in just 1 minute, we're now looking at our smaller players. You can notice again, with the smaller players, we've seen them dip down, which is very, very interesting. You'll notice EOS is not on this list. So if it was, that'd be nice to be able to see, but it isn't. So in that case, that's all right. But again, taking away our large players here, Litecoin has just had its resurgence. I will be talking about that in 1 second. And again, down to our small players. These go with our others, quote unquote, except for Monero apparently. But Monero, I'm sure, will soon follow. You can see, ever since Bitcoin has grown, this has grown right here. We've seen Neo grown. We have seen IOTA grown. We have seen all these sort of altcoins growing because they are others. While they are high market cap others, they are still others. There they are. And they have been growing. So is Dash, Tron, etc. Pretty much everything has been, as a matter of fact, which leads me to my next awesome point. Going to our coin market cap trending gainers and losers, then to our 7-day, I want to talk about our biggest gainers. Now, I don't want to focus on any one of these specifically, but I do want to talk about our gains lately. One way to tell if a market is healthy or not healthy is looking at the gainers and losers. So looking at our gainers and losers chart, you will always see a high percentage gainers in the crypto market because that's how crypto is. But if you go to the bottom of the list, you can find that we have huge gainers even at the bottom. So when the market was bearish, which it was for, all of this time, our biggest gainers and losers chart often looked like, 100% maybe, a few, a little bit here, 50, whatever. But as soon as you got to the lower numbers, it would all of a sudden be like 5, 10%, 20. But when you got to the very bottom, it would actually just be a couple percentage, which is not bad in any sense, but it definitely doesn't show a healthy crypto market because crypto is so volatile, like at least for now. So going down to the bottom of our list between 25 and 30, we're seeing 87 and 79% growth, so around 80 to 90% growth. And that's huge to see that the market has been doing so well. Even more telling of the market is biggest losers. Again, you'll always see this. So going to the crypto market, let's scroll down. As soon as we even get to 10th place, we're only seeing a 15% loss, which again in crypto is really nothing. And also a lot of these like Litecoin Cash, Whalecoin, Bitcoin, Lightning Bitcoin futures. But like these are cryptocurrencies that should not be big anyway. So seeing these minor losses is really nothing. And going down to 25th place again, 25th or 30th, 3% to 2%. That's our big loss. So compare that loss, 4 to 3% compared to our gains. 90 to 80% gains. So huge gains compared to small losses. Generally a green market, and that is beautiful to see. Again, something I like doing, looking at the change. You can see in our top 100, it's almost all green. Then our losses again, like 3% here in Electronium and Bitcoin Diamond, of course, going down. And even in our 200, top 200 here, you can see that we barely have any losses, especially in comparison to, so what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 losses in 100, from our 100 to 200 place cryptos, with 200% gains, 40% gains, and an average of maybe 5% gains in comparison to a total, 5% gains being our biggest loss here. So again, that's really huge for the market, seeing this beautiful turnaround. And the thing is, it hasn't just been a green day, it's been a green week, and that is beautiful. So let us jump into it. First, I want to draw your attention to that I relatively close to lined up the dates, so December to the current date. The only difference is this bar right here will have different values based off of Satoshis compared to dollars, and etc. So I'm going to quickly go through our top 5, or actually I have our top 6 lined up right here, which I will talk about in just 1 minute why I'm doing that. But I'm going to quickly go through them just to show you guys a comparison. So here we have Bitcoin to USD. The rest of these are Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, EOS, all in relation to Bitcoin because that's how I want to view the market for right now, given that Bitcoin is still the main control of the market. So let's see what follows what trends. You can see Bitcoin here has rise, it's dropped early February, rise back up again March, and fall back down. And of course a recent rise. Ethereum, you can see, very similar in terms of its overall trend, but in terms of the date trend, starting December, Ethereum grew all the way to mid-February, which is very different from Bitcoin, exactly inverse as a matter of fact, and then continued to drop off, with Bitcoin steadily. And when Bitcoin had this massive pump up early February to March, you can see early February to March, Ethereum just saw it drop because the market was still bearish. That was a good sign of the market being bearish, was the fact that other cryptos were still dropping. But you can see Ethereum is not necessarily following Bitcoin to a T. If we then look at Ripple, we'll notice much more of a similarity in the chart between Ripple and Ethereum. They both had these run-ups. The difference is Ethereum, again, to February versus Ripple had the run-up until 2018, which is pretty similar to Bitcoin. People were still bullish on Ripple and on Bitcoin and the Ripple space. So people who were trading Ripple thought Bitcoin was still going up in 2018, and then eventually it saw its market decline. And again, we're seeing it turn around right here. Bitcoin Cash. You might be surprised in the similarity between these graphs, but the fact is Bitcoin Cash and Ripple are both altcoins that are controlled by Bitcoin's movements. So they both spiked up at the same time. They both spiked up at the same time. You can see Bitcoin Cash kind of went up between December to January. And we can see Ripple here spiked up between December and January. but a little bit earlier. But they have very similar graphs in the fact that they both spiked and sort of then fell down, very similar to a lot of the altcoins you'll see, maybe Tron or Poe. Let's literally just throw these on here. And TRX coin. So let's line up. So while the percentages are of course different, you can see the graph generally same spike up and a fall down right here. This is pretty key to look at for the general movement of Ripple. And since it fell down here, you can then see they've grown. So they all started growing at different places. As you can see, Ripple and Poe both a little bit earlier than, Poe and Tron both a little bit earlier than Ripple. But Ripple's growing as well. The difference is, I think, a lot of the lower market cap altcoins, so Poe, for example, and Tron is still high market cap, but it is lower than where else we're looking at. It is 14th place, though, so it is still very high. But they started turning around earlier than, I think, the rest of it because of the fact that it's easier to turn around a lower market cap crypto. So, for example, you see Ripple, and you see Ethereum, and you see Bitcoin Cash turning around a lot slower, and that's because it takes more money to turn them around. Speaking of which, we are now going to look at the graph very similar to Ripple. Bitcoin Cash, as you guys know, I'm not a big Bitcoin Cash fan. But just looking at their graphs, which I would like to do, looking at their graphs, you can see they're very similar. And they're both having the same turnaround. Bitcoin Cash is now having the turnaround, which makes sense because it is at this point just an altcoin. Right here, we can see that it is currently at half Ripple's market cap, and it has been rising in market cap, which makes sense because it has been rising in price. Bitcoin Cash, as I said, I think eventually will die off, but for now, it is here. I think it is here to stay until something very major happens. Next up is Litecoin. Litecoin is very interesting because it does not look similar to any of the rest of our graphs. Litecoin is Bitcoin silver, quote unquote, which is why, if you look at it, Litecoin has stayed in this parallel channel for the whole while that Bitcoin has been moving, which I think is very interesting. So Litecoin has really been Bitcoin's silver. It has been staying constant in price. Now, I know this is a huge margin to say, well, you're going to say, well, constant price, that is a 60% change. Yeah, but in crypto, that isn't a huge change. Looking at it also minus the highs and the lows, you can see really we have been in this kind of average range right here of right there. You can see we've been in this average range. There we go. You can see we've been in about 20% average range. I think this is around 20%. 25% average range, and that really is not that big of a change. It's been staying relatively consistent. Litecoin has seen its major dips and its major rises, but the thing is, I think Litecoin could definitely come back, especially given that after Litecoin Pay didn't go through, there wasn't a huge crash in Litecoin price, which I thought was relatively surprising, but then I remembered a huge amount of Litecoin's market cap dominance is just because it is Bitcoin silver and has been Bitcoin silver and will continue to stay around as such. And we're now finally seeing its turnaround, which was expected at any point, given that, for example, Ripple turned around earlier than it, around April 9th, and we can see Litecoin here at April 9th was still going stagnant and actually then fell down. But now we're back to where it was, stagnating with the last week or so. So we'll see what happens with Litecoin, but I'm generally bullish on Litecoin just because, again, if Bitcoin's rising, Litecoin should be rising. But also, Litecoin, as I said, has been relatively tethered to Bitcoin, so it may continue to just fluctuate in this range. I think that is very possible. Now, I know normally I only do the top 5 cryptos, but the reason I'm drawing up number 6 is because you can notice EOS is right next to Litecoin with a tiny market cap change of only $600 million, which really is not much, or $620 million. So EOS here has a very distinctive graph, very different from anything else we've seen here, because EOS has had, in terms of similarity, Ethereum and EOS have the most similar graphs. But EOS has had a full turnaround, almost to a cup and handle sort of deal. That's not the tool I want. There it is. And I think this is very interesting because we have seen it fully come back. It is the only crypto so far to have fully come back. That would be if Litecoin reached its, again, 0.00017 or 0.0018, or Ethereum reached its 0.1 Bitcoin place. If we see this return from every crypto, that would be incredible. If we saw the return of Bitcoin Cash coming back to here, which again, I don't expect. But Litecoin, if we saw Litecoin coming back to its highs. But we're seeing EOS come back to its very highs. The hype behind EOS has not died. The hype behind EOS is still there, which I find very interesting. And you notice with each spike, we've seen a fall, which makes sense. Spike, flag, spike, drop, spike, drop, spike, drop, spike. Our biggest drop after our biggest spike, which again makes sense. It was a nice flag, and now we're seeing it come back after that flag. So you can see all of these patterns are exactly identical. Like I said in my last video, it did come back after. So if you were watching that video closely, go you. I hope that helped. Again, none of this is market advice, but I am telling you my opinions. I do think unless EOS releases something real soon, I think it will drop back down. But for now, it may continue to grow. In a similar note, Cardano is the same way. You can see we have EOS right here. But if we look at Cardano, we can see it has a very similar graph again to Ripple and Bitcoin Cash, the drop off and the coming back because again altcoin. And if you look, it's very similar to what EOS has, except EOS has fully completed the cup and handle position. So while EOS looks like this today, Cardano is only this far. So we could see a very similar trajectory for Cardano, more realistically speaking, shifted over more like that, as we will see it continue to flag, stagnate, and eventually go up. But if the whole market continues as it is, we could see this definitely from Cardano and our other high market cap movers. Now, from what most of you are curious about, let's check out Bitcoin. Bitcoin is back with one worrying item, and past that, nothing to worry about. But the one worrying item is something we should at least keep an eye on whether or not it's worrying. So first, let's look at some lines. The first thing I'd like to talk about is that we have again risen over this trend line. So this is kind of our non-logarithmic trend line to see our standard growth, right? Because Bitcoin is going in kind of exponential. It got too exponential and now it's continued back and is relatively still exponential, but not extremely so trend. So you can see right here, we again fluctuated on this line, something I talked about. We've now busted above it. We have busted above the 7,500, and we are starting to look really good. Busted above this resistance line. We have crushed all these different points we had to crush. Now, this orange line is the concerning part. Looking at a logarithmic graph, you can see this is a resistance line. This has been our highs. So there is another possibility. A lot of people thought that this line right here, which didn't match up perfectly, matched up okay enough. Well, okay enough is not often the case in technical analysis. Okay enough does not work, especially for whales who control it, who do technical analysis. They know it doesn't work because they want people to see it. If you look, if I line it up with this top right here, it goes right through our middle. So that doesn't work. So a lot of people are saying the Bitcoin bull is back. I think it's possible, but I think there's another distinctive possibility that we have to discuss, which is this logarithmic line and Bitcoin hitting it. If Bitcoin breaks through this logarithmic line, I'm officially logarithmic resistance line. Excuse me, tongue twister. If Bitcoin breaks through this line, so whatever price that may be at, maybe it would be here at 8,200, but again, it depends on the day, because if it breaks through on this day, it'd have to break around 7,800, or if it was today, it'd have to break over around 8,500. But if Bitcoin breaks through it, I'm officially bullish on Bitcoin once again, as in short term. I am bullish on Bitcoin long term, for now. But there is the distinct possibility that Bitcoin does not break. And then what do I think will happen? That's a great question. You can see when this happened here, Bitcoin went up and everybody said, okay, the bear is over, the bull is back, and then we dropped as soon as we hit this line. We could see the very same thing happening. This could be another hit the line, bounce downwards. Question is, where do we bounce downwards to? My thinking is currently the 6,800 line. 6,800 line has been a strong line for us. In addition to being resistance back here, in kind of the middle of our fluctuation point. Here, let me get rid of some of these lines so it's less confusing. These ones too. There we go. In addition to being our fluctuation point here, kind of making a sign, in addition to being our bottom touching point minus the wicks here, we can see there's our fluctuation point right here. So I think a very distinct possibility for Bitcoin is the following. We are going to see it rise, hit this line, come back down. That's possible. Now the question is, what is probable? So I think we have a few probable, I'm just cleaning this up so it's easier to see. We have a few probable situations. One, the Bitcoin bull run is back. We're seeing market capitalization return, but we did here as well. We are seeing alt reverse, which is a very good sign and could actually signal that this is the breaking point. And I think there's a distinct possibility that it would, which is why I would say there's probably a 75% chance, in my opinion, that we're going to break through. We've had 1, 2, 3 touches. It would make sense that this next touch would be right through here. It is also possible, let's make that green for growth. It is also possible that we will see it bounce down to this line, fluctuate a tad, and then go up. Again, still green. We're still seeing the growth happen there. You can see this is a classic wedge formation. The difference is in this logarithmic graph of Bitcoin. And our last possibility is red, which I will draw after, because if I do it now, it'll change the other line color. So our other possibility is that we go here, we fluctuate for a bit, same as I said before, and then go down. This is a bad situation. That would be very bad, and we are going to have to watch this very carefully to see what happens. In terms of previous resistance points, there really aren't many lines that connect well to predict which is going to happen or when. I've been looking for these for a while, and you can see we have this line which touches bottoms, but it's way too early. We have a much longer term line here, there it is, to here, bottom to bottom, if I can get it right, there we go, and then extend. But you can see that is all the way out here. We really don't have a logarithmic predictory line. The only one I could come up with that I thought was relatively close was from this top right here to this bottom right here, but this isn't even close, as you can see. We don't really have a line that will predict accurately when Bitcoin is going to do this, but you can see the close of the wedge is a pretty good predictor. Because the price has been squeezing in here, not perfectly, you know, we didn't have a bounce directly down, then up, then down, but we have seen it double touch the top, one touch on the bottom, another touch on the bottom. So we had 3 tops, 2 bottoms. If we then saw another top and a bottom, that would be the determining point, just like how this was the determining point, as I was saying 2 videos earlier. This determined what happened to Bitcoin, a drop or a rise. And we saw a rise. Right here we have another determining point. So let's keep updated, let's keep vigilant, and as always, if you have any questions about cryptocurrencies, come on over to our Discord. We'll answer everything you have. Make sure to join the premium and chat with me and the other analysts live as much as you would like. We will be there, and I can't wait to see you in our Discord. Check us out on Facebook, check us out on Reddit, check us out on all of our social media, the description below. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great day.